I married her for a business deal. And swore I would never touch her. I was a ruthless billionaire who believed love was a liability. Trust was weakness. And success was built alone. But one stormy night, when my empire was seconds away from collapse, the woman I kept at a distance made a sacrifice that shattered my pride, and exposed a truth about my past that I never saw coming. Was I really betrayed? Or was I running from something far deeper? This is not just the story of how I became a billionaire. It is the story of how I almost lost everything that truly mattered. Stay with me, because what happened next changed my life forever. I was not born into silk sheets and glass towers. I was born in a one-room house, where rain slipped through the roof, and pride was the only thing we owned. My father died with debts in his name. My mother stitched clothes until her fingers bled. I learned early that hunger has a sound. It growls louder than fear. By 25, I had built a company from nothing but borrowed money, and sleepless nights that smelled of cold coffee and burning wires. Then my partner betrayed me. He emptied the accounts, left me with lawsuits, left me with shame. I remember standing outside the courthouse, rain soaking through my only suit, reporters calling me a fraud. That was the day I married her. It was a deal. Her family would invest. My company would survive. I looked into her calm eyes and said, "We will marry. But I will never touch you." I believed love was weakness. Attachment was risk. And I had lost enough. She moved into my penthouse quietly. No demands. No complaints. She would leave tea by my desk at 3 a.m. Steam rising like silent encouragement. When the board mocked me, she placed her hand over mine and said, "Strength is not loud. It is consistent." When investors doubted me, she studied balance sheets beside me, learning a world she never asked to enter. I worked like a man chased by ghosts. She worked like a woman building a future. Months passed. The company rose again. Profit returned. Respect followed. Yet I remained distant. Cold. Untouched. Then came the stormy night. Thunder shook the windows. The city went dark. And so did I. The bank called. A final demand. One payment missing. Everything at risk again. I felt that old hunger. That old shame. I broke in front of her. For the first time, I allowed her to see the frightened boy behind the billionaire. She did not speak of fear. She did not speak of loss. She sold her inheritance that night. Every jewel. Every memory. Not for wealth. For me. And when I reached for her hand in gratitude, my vow shattered louder than the thunder outside. I understood then. Success is not built on money. It is built on the person who believes in you. When you no longer believe in yourself. The storm outside faded. But the storm inside me was just beginning to clear. When she looked at me and whispered something that changed everything. She looked at me and whispered, "I did not marry you for security. I married you because I saw the man you were afraid to become." Her words cut deeper than any accusation. I had built towers of steel and glass. Yet inside I was still that barefoot boy, counting coins under a leaking roof. The storm pressed against the windows. Lightning split the sky into white veins. In that brief flash, I saw her clearly. Not as a partner in a contract. Not as an obligation. But as courage wrapped in tenderness. I felt shame burn in my chest. All my success. And still I had starved her of warmth. "I promised I would never touch you," I said. My voice trembled, raw and unfamiliar. I was wrong. She stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell jasmine in her hair. Feel the warmth of her breath against the cold armor of my fear. You were protecting yourself, she said gently. But love is not a threat. It is strength. Outside, the wind howled like my past. Inside, something softened. I told her about the betrayal. About the humiliation. About the night I almost walked into the river. Because failure felt heavier than life. She listened. No judgment. Only steady eyes filled with fierce loyalty. Your pain built your empire, she said. But do not let it rule your heart. The next morning, I walked into the bank not as a desperate man, but as a leader with clarity. I negotiated. I risked everything again. This time with wisdom, not ego. Weeks later, our company valuation tripled. Investors who once mocked me now sought my approval. But my greatest victory was not the headlines. It was coming home early. It was learning the rhythm of her laughter. It was understanding that strength without love is empty. One evening, I placed a document before her. Not a contract. A transfer of shares. Half of everything I owned. She looked at me in shock. And then she asked a question. That made my heart race faster than any business deal ever had. She looked at the papers, then at me. Do you trust me? She asked softly. Or are you trying to repay me? The question struck harder than any market crash. I had mastered negotiations. But I had never mastered vulnerability. I trust you, I said. For the first time in my life, I trust someone more than I trust fear. She did not sign. Instead, she folded the document. And placed it back into my hands. I do not want half your empire, she said. I want all of you. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. No boardroom had ever intimidated me like that moment. Because this required surrender. Not money. Not strategy. But pride. I stepped closer. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. Like the echo of that stormy night that changed us. I spent my life building walls, I told her. Every success was another brick. Every betrayal, more cement. You are the only person who ever tried to open a door instead. Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. Then open it, she whispered. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the dark river. Inside, I felt something I had chased through wealth. Through ambition. Through endless nights of calculation. Peace. I reached for her slowly. Not out of impulse. Not out of gratitude. But out of choice. For the first time, my touch was not a transaction. It was a promise. Months passed. Our company expanded globally. Awards lined my office walls. Interviews called me self-made. They were wrong. I was rebuilt. By patience. By truth. By a woman who saw strength in my weakness. One evening, as we stood on the balcony overlooking the city I once feared, she rested her head against my shoulder and said something that made my breath stop. She rested her head against my shoulder and said, "You are still running." The city lights shimmered below us. Gold against the velvet dark. "I am standing still," I replied. She shook her head gently. "No. You are building faster. Expanding wider. Winning louder. But you are still trying to outrun that hungry boy." Her words settled into me like quiet rain. For years, I had believed success was distance. Distance from poverty. Distance from humiliation. Distance from the memory of my mother counting coins at midnight. But distance is not healing. It is hiding. The next week, I returned to the street where I was raised. The air still carried the scent of dust and diesel. Children still played barefoot on broken pavement. Roofs still leaked when clouds gathered. I felt the old ache in my chest. Not shame this time. Responsibility. She stood beside me, her hand steady in mine. No cameras. No press release. Only purpose. We build here, she said. Not factories. Not offices. A school. A clinic. A training center for small business owners who reminded me of my father. I invested millions. But she invested time. She listened to widows. She mentored young girls. She taught financial literacy beneath a ceiling fan that barely turned. I watched her kneel to speak to a child at eye level. And I understood something deeper than profit margins. Wealth is loud. Impact is quiet. Months later, the first group of students graduated. Their applause echoed through the modest hall like a symphony more powerful than any shareholders' meeting. A boy approached me afterward. Thin. Determined. Eyes burning with the same fire I once carried. Sir, he said. I will build something bigger than you one day. Instead of pride, I felt joy. That night, as we drove home, she looked at me with a softness that felt eternal. You finally stopped running, she whispered. I was about to answer. When my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. A voice from my past. He partner who betrayed me. And what he said next made my blood run cold. And what he said next made my blood run cold. I was wrong. His voice was thinner. Older. Stripped of arrogance. I am bankrupt, he continued. No one will hire me. I destroyed you, and myself. The car felt suddenly smaller. The night air heavier. For years, I had rehearsed this moment in my mind. Imagined revenge dressed as justice. Imagined watching him fall the way I once fell. Beside me, she remained silent. But her hand found mine. Not to guide me. Not to stop me. Only to remind me who I had become. What do you want? I asked calmly. A chance, he said. One meeting. I have an idea. If you refuse, I understand. The old version of me would have hung up. Power protects itself. Pride demands payment. But growth asks harder questions. I ended the call without answering. We drove in silence, city lights streaking across the windshield like fading memories. You owe him nothing, she said gently. I know. But what do you owe yourself? That question lingered long after we reached home. Sleep did not come easily. I walked through the halls of the life I had built. Art on the walls. Awards in glass cases. Security guards at every gate. Yet peace is not protected by gates. It is protected by choice. At dawn, I stood by the window watching the sun rise over the skyline I once feared. The same skyline that now carried my name on steel towers. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is freedom. I picked up the phone. Scheduled the meeting. Not for him. For me. When I entered the boardroom that afternoon, he was already there. Smaller than I remembered. Eyes hollow with regret. He stood slowly. And before he could speak, I saw something on the table in front of him. And before he could speak, I saw something on the table in front of him. A worn leather folder. Creased at the edges. Shaking slightly beneath his hand. Not arrogance. Not entitlement. Fear. I kept every original draft, he said quietly. The designs we built together. The vision you created. He opened the folder. Inside were the first sketches of my company. Drawn on cheap paper. Coffee stains still marking the corners. For a moment, I was no longer a billionaire. I was a young man with reckless belief. And a partner I once called brother. I betrayed you because investors offered me more, he confessed. I chose speed over loyalty. And I have been paying for that choice ever since. The boardroom felt heavy with memory. Glass walls. Polished table. Two men separated by one decision made years ago. I do not need your money, he continued. I need redemption. Give me one project. Let me earn back my name. My pulse was steady. Not with anger, but with clarity. Revenge would be easy. Refusal would be justified. But leadership is measured by restraint. I thought of the school we built. Of the boy who promised to surpass me. Of the woman who taught me that strength is quiet. You will not be my partner, I said finally. But you will work under my foundation. He blinked, confused. You will manage expansion projects in the communities we serve. No headlines. No shares. Only service. Silence stretched between us. Then his shoulders lowered. Not defeated. Relieved. Thank you, he whispered. As he gathered the folder, he hesitated. There is one more thing, he said carefully. Something you deserve to know about that night I emptied the accounts. The air shifted. Because the story I believed for years was about to change. You were never the real target, he said. The words landed slowly. There were men behind the investors. They planned to force you out anyway. I was weak. I took their offer. But even if I had refused, they would have attacked. For a long moment, I said nothing. All these years, I carried betrayal like a scar. But the truth was heavier than anger. It was fear. And fear had ruled us both. I walked to the window. The city stretched before me, bright and alive. So different from the dark streets of my childhood. I lost everything once, I said quietly. And I thought it was because someone stole it. I turned back to him. But I only truly lost when I allowed pain to harden me. He lowered his eyes. You can rebuild your name, I continued. But character is built daily. Do not fail again. He nodded, not as a rival, but as a man given a final chance. When I left the building, she was waiting downstairs. No questions. Only trust in her gaze. It is finished, I told her. She smiled gently. Then let it stay in the past. Years later, people would call me self-made. They would study my strategies. They would analyze my risks. But they would never see the true foundation of my wealth. It was not capital. It was courage. Not ambition. But forgiveness. Not dominance. But love. The boy who once feared hunger now feeds thousands. The man who once feared betrayal now chooses trust. The husband who once swore he would never touch his wife now holds her hand through every victory and every storm. Success is not measured by how high you rise. It is measured by how deeply you grow. And if there is one lesson my life proves, it is this. Build your empire with discipline. Build your name with integrity. But build your heart with love. Because wealth without character will collapse. Power without compassion will isolate. And ambition without partnership will exhaust the soul. I became a billionaire through hard work. I became a man. Because she stayed.